Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of European Battle Royale. Let's get right into it. Albania will be invading north. The country to the north of Albania is Kosovo. And Albania isn't just invading north for no reason into a country much stronger than them and a much stronger alliance than them. They do have a reason, and that reason is that the Cyan Alliance told them to. They basically said, hey, we're going to invade Kosovo together, take them out, you'll get some land. So Albania starts invading, and it takes a little while, but eventually they realize that this was basically just a massive prank on the part of the Cyan Alliance. They basically wanted to weaken Kosovo without actually having to do any of that work, so they're getting Albania to invade into them. And the threat of invading into them makes Kosovo keep a lot of troops over here, but the fact that they're not invading into Kosovo means the Orange Alliance can't help Kosovo out. And because Albania is so weak, they don't really want to help Kosovo out against just Albania. So Albania is actually winning against Kosovo, surprisingly. They're also being funded by the Cyan Alliance a bit. But they're obviously not that strong. And the Orange Alliance is really upset about this, more specifically Kosovo. And the Orange Alliance starts funding them at some point because they want this war to be over. And Albania already is starting to lose. And then, just to make a bad thing worse, when it rains, it pours because Greece gets in on the war. And they pretty quickly start taking the southern portions of Albania. And with that, Kosovo is able to take the northern portions of Albania. And things all seem fine and dandy. But then Romania starts supplying Greece like crazy, and Greece therefore stakes their claim into all of Albania, and they actually start pushing Kosovo out of Albania, and they're like, wait, didn't we just invade Albania together? And Greece is like, yeah, but you didn't give me my spoils. And now Kosovo is being invaded by Greece, and they have to basically agree to give all of Albania to Greece. And this is what that looks like. Okay, next up, Turkey will be invading northeast. The country to the northeast of Turkey is Georgia, which is not a member of this series. However, just like Mexico and Canada in the US series, Georgia is allowing Turkey to move troops through to their real target, and that target is Russia. And Georgia won't directly get involved because they're not allowed to per the rules of this series, but they are allowing Turkey to move troops through. And Russia was not expecting this at all, and Turkish troops entering into Russia it's not just surprising to Russia, it's surprising to everyone. But Turkey wasn't just doing this by themselves, because Russia is much stronger than Turkey, even in their slightly weakened state that they're in right now, having lost Kaliningrad. As they are able to push Turkey almost all the way back to the Georgian border, they only keep a little stake out right here. Now, actually, Turkey was not coordinating with the Cyan Alliance. The Slavic Union wanted to invade into Russia, but the rest of the Cyan Alliance didn't want to do that, and the Slavic Union backed down. Instead, and I know I just said this isn't something I'm going to do in this series, but it is something I'm going to do. Turkey was cooperating with China. So, here's the thing. Russia owns a lot of land in Asia, and I don't want the Asian land to become part of this series. So what we're going to do is China, as well as Mongolia, they're going to get Mongolia in on the war just to make things easier for them, is going to just start doing some massive invading work into the Russian Far East as soon as Turkey starts invading into the West. They're going to take Vladivostok pretty quickly, and after that it's not really worthwhile for Russia to keep the East. And so to prevent China from invading them and prevent them from having to do this anymore, they will immediately make a deal with China, or not immediately, but pretty quickly, giving all land east of the Urals, which is about here, to China, with which China will create a buffer state. They don't actually annex any land except in the Far East. China only annexes a bit of land right here. Otherwise, they kind of leave this new Russian Siberian state to its own devices, but that's a story for another time, probably never. Let's go back to the actual European part of this theater, where Turkey didn't expect Russia to do this, and therefore is getting absolutely clobbered by Russia, who moves troops through Georgia without asking Georgia, which Georgia should resist, but they're not allowed to per the rules of this series, which means they just let Russia move troops through them. Maybe they don't want to anger Russia. And Russia starts moving troops into Turkey, and At this point, they reached some of the regional allies who let them move troops all around here and into Turkey through all the directions. And Russia is enough stronger than Turkey than this actually makes sense, that they could actually invade Turkey, which is itself a pretty strong country, um, with relative ease. Of course, Greece isn't going to just let this go by, this opportunity, without doing something about it. So they do, and they quickly seize Istanbul, as well as the um, part across the Strait of Bosphorus. And Russia will continue invading into Turkey, quickly dipping down to take Cyprus before uh, continuing to invade into Turkey. And as Ankara starts being threatened and Istanbul has already been taken, Turkey will finally surrender to both invading powers. Okay, so I know I just said that we're not including Georgia in this, but Russia does technically control part of Georgia in the modern day, so it's not that crazy that they would just take a strip of land so they could connect to their Turkish claims. And Russia has replaced its far eastern land with a land that's arguably almost as valuable, but smaller and easier to control, and also has defeated a foe. So, definitely not a bad day for Russia. Ireland will invade northeast. So, not having learned their lesson at all, Ireland will again try invading into the UK. But while the first two times Ireland and the UK were seen as like equal morally, this time Ireland has a lot of problems. First of all, they're extremely debt ridden, and they no longer just owe debt to the UK. They basically owe debt to every single country in Europe, and they're just refusing to pay it, and they default on their debt in order to go to war. Which is a very bad thing. So they're basically seen as the bad guys. They've also tried invading the UK 3 times, so they're not seen as the good guys anymore. In fact, it gets so bad that although I'm not allowed to dissolve the alliance with the Vatican per the rules of this series, the Vatican basically tries to hide the fact that they're in this alliance and doesn't help Ireland at all. In fact, they contribute, along with basically the entire rest of Europe, to aiding the UK against Ireland. So as soon as Ireland lands on Scotland, the UK is ready for them, and the UK will land in Northern Ireland where they are greeted with cheers and swiftly invade the rest of Ireland. And while the Irish people wail and suffer, the rest of Europe basically hates Ireland so much at this point for having all the debt and also in trying to invade their neighbor that they basically encourage Britain to do what they do in Ireland, and Ireland is fully taken by Britain. Therefore, the Pink Alliance is no more. Next up, Kosovo will be invading northeast. Angered by the Cyan Alliance and wanting to stir the pot, Kosovo will invade into Romania. Unfortunately for them, the Orange Alliance has basically forsaken them at this point. The Orange Alliance, like NATO, basically makes it impossible to kick anyone out. So Kosovo will stay in the alliance, but they're essentially on their own at this point. So they will basically be invading into Romania on their own, and the Cyan Alliance will not like this, will not let this happen, and Kosovo will start getting invaded into. Things will continue to not go well for Kosovo as they continue getting invaded into, and before long, they are starting to get pretty beaten up. Greece will join in to take some land from Kosovo. They've never really liked Kosovo much in a while. And all of a sudden, Kosovo is officially kicked out of the Orange Alliance because Hungary is going to invade into Kosovo. And this is basically Kosovo's death point because there's no way for Kosovo to survive these 3 invaders, as they get destroyed not only by these 3 invaders, but also by Serbian nationalists within their own country. Things don't go well for them, let's put it that way. And this is what the division of Kosovo looks like. Okay, last event of this episode. Switzerland will be invading Southwest. I think this episode was entirely invasions. So Switzerland, as well as the Orange Alliance as a whole, will actually be trying to invade into and weaken France. And they'll have some help. Liechtenstein, Italy, the Vatican, and the Purple Alliance will also be aiding them in their weakening France goal. And luckily for them, with the exception of Hungary, none of the Orange Alliance nor any of the coalition members border the Cyan Alliance. And so when France is invaded by the Netherlands for the second time, this time being ready for it, things don't go particularly well for the Netherlands, but they do manage to get in there before the front line kind of stops. Switzerland invades a little bit and is actually slightly more successful just because of their front lines. Germany has a pretty interesting strategy of basically just ignoring war strategy and going straight for Paris, almost reaching it before not reaching it and being pushed back and forced to like understand why war strategy is a good idea. But honestly, it probably wasn't a good idea to do the normal war strategy because they now have the most French land out of anyone. Italy and the Vatican are also invading into France, and they finally break through. The main goal for Italy is to take Sardinia. So, although they are also invading into France, their main goal is to take Sardinia, and they take it back. And once they do, immediately they leave the war if France just promises to give them Sardinia. That's kind of a problem for a lot of countries, but the Vatican leaves. They had been promised a little bit of land by Italy in exchange for helping Italy get Sicily back. And this is the land they got from it. The Vatican gets ever larger. France will then suffer an Andorran rebellion against France, which will pretty much go nowhere in terms of being able to stop France, but they decide to crush the rebellion instead of fighting militaries. And although the Netherlands and Switzerland don't really do anything about it, once again, Germany is pulling the weight of this alliance here, invading even further into France and making it very difficult to not take Paris. So they take Paris, after which France instantly surrenders because that's kind of their thing, but they stay in the Cyan Alliance, so yeah. And this is what the new borders of France look like. So with that, we'll end the episode. Comment down below, as always, who you think is going to win. Comment down below if you think that the Russia thing with China taking half of it was going too far. I kind of wanted to keep this close to Europe and ignore the Asian part of Russia. This was my way of doing it. Tell me if you think that was a good idea. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe so you don't miss it when the next one comes out. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.